and welcome to this episode of Conversation with a Chef. I'm Jo Ritty and I love sharing with you the conversations I get to have with talented and passionate chefs. It's the backstory, if you will, to the food they're putting up. I begin today by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, traditional custodians of the lands where this conversation took place. Land which was never ceded, land where communities came together to eat seasonally, locally and without exhausting resources. I pay my respects to their elders past and present and to any First Nations people listening today. For over 30 years, Phillippa Grogan has been a beloved name in Melbourne's food scene. Founder of Philippa's Bakery, she draws inspiration from her New Zealand childhood and 9 formative years with Sally Clarke at her restaurant and food store in London. Philippa is unyielding in her use of top quality ingredients, traditional recipes and flavour. Philippa is absolutely all about flavour. Because of that, her creations have become a staple for generations of Melburnians. Walking into her Armadale shop feels like walking into a farmhouse kitchen with its beautiful wooden sideboards and display cabinets full of delicious quiches and breads and the hugely popular cardamom buns. I was delighted to have the chance to sit with Philippa and hear her story, and I will definitely be back very soon for another cardamom bun. Well, it's lovely to meet you, Philippa. Thank you for your time today. And I'm such a big fan, and when I was invited to speak to you, I couldn't really believe it because you are a legend on the Melbourne landscape. And congratulations on 30 years of business.
It's hard to believe.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Who would have thought 30 years ago?
Yeah, so 1994, what were your thoughts around opening was always going to be a bakery or more of a deli?
Well, it's a food store and we were
right.
baking bread.
Yeah.
And I was shortly off the plane from London, where I had spent 9 years working for Sally Clarke in a lovely food store. And that was in Kensington Church Street, in amongst all the antique shops. So when I came here, I felt very comfortable in amongst all the antique shops because this was the antique strip. And Tartine was across the road, and I'd known that because I went to school not far, and I remember going in there when I was still at school. I thought, okay, well, one food store and lots of antique shops, it feels good. Everybody said to me, no, you can't have a food shop unless you're near a supermarket or a bank or a chemist or there's a list of locations that I should have been, but sort of like a bakery. And I was like, I haven't heard of all that theory. I just sort of, I don't know, it felt right. And so I found this place and renovated it, and was open sort of within maybe 2 or 3 months in the May the 22nd, I think. And on the first day we took $284, and then we took more the second day and the third day, and word must have got out, so it just sort of slowly built. And it was great, but the other thing that was in my favour, in a way, I think, is that we'd just come out of a recession here. We'd already bottomed out.
Yeah. And
people were looking for things that made them happy, new, fresh ideas. And I guess my ideas were coming straight from London. That's always, a little bit different, but very sympathetic to our culture here. And I think because my focus has always been deeply seated in traditional, usually baked, homemade goods. Being from New Zealand, my grandparents and my parents always cooked and baked. And there was always something for me, quite an emotional connection with the food that was in my family home, whether it was the smells or the aromas when the oven was on, or the flavours that would take me back to a happy time. Usually takes you back to your childhood, those sorts of things. And I guess opening in High Street Armadale, surrounded by families, many young families, meant that we had young mums with kids and young dads with kids, little kids coming in, who ended up growing up with us and getting obviously used to the flavours of my baking because their parents were too busy.
Yeah.
So that became their emotional connection now to their childhood. And they still talk about the honey bears, and they talk about the mince pies, and they talk about the hot cross buns that have a particular flavour that is distinctive to them, reminds them of their childhood. And that's what it was like back then, really.
And do you think that's what you owe the longevity of the business to as well, that link for people to perhaps nostalgia and childhood memories and consistency of those things?
Yes, I think a lot of it's got to do with that connection to nostalgia. And growing up, I've been in this location for those 30 years. And so people have come in here as babies and come in here as teenagers and they're used to the flavour profiles. And so definitely, but also in terms of the longevity, I would say that very early on we did as much as we could to get as much food into people's mouths so they tasted it. And usually the net result was they would taste it and they would love it and talk about it. So we found that the more people we gave tastings to, the easier it was to build a customer base. And doing that early on meant that we had a big wide customer base. And because we've been around for 30 years, that's just come with us and grown. But
so on that first day, or when you first started out, what products were you making?
We made some loaves of bread, cornbread, pane toscano, not so much sourdough back then actually. Sourdough came a little bit later. But all of the breads that we made that we yeasted and still make that are yeasted are very low yeast, low salt, no additives, no natural or unnatural additives. So unnatural would be a bottle of improver and a natural one would be malt or vitamin C, but we don't add anything at all because we don't want to influence the natural slow proofing of the bread. We just let it slowly go through that pre-digestion process of the wheat by long, slow fermentation, unassisted. So we had also little brioche fruit tarts, and we had a large fruit brioche tart, an almond tart, and lemon tart. We always had the lemon tart from the very beginning. Chocolate chip hazelnut cookies, and chocolate brownie. It was a slightly different chocolate brownie, so we've morphed that over the years. We've developed that recipe further, but that's still been in our range for a very long time. It's one of our top sellers. And Parmesan sablés were very early. But there were a lot of other products that we always trialled products. Actually, on the very first day, we had jars of crabapple jelly.
Oh.
Because in the lead up to having the store open, my parents' house had crabapple tree, and we made jelly, so we had something on the shelves because we've always had jars of jam and relishes and things that we make out the back in the kitchen. So yeah, I remember all those products being there.
Do all your stores have kitchens out the back as well?
So this store in Armadale has a kitchen out the back where we make tarts, lemon tarts, meals that we cry back into the containers, and pizzas and sausage rolls and pies, jams and cakes. And our other store down in Brighton makes bread.
Okay.
And we now sell the bread from Brighton. We get that here every morning. And we take meals down to Brighton. So Brighton is really a full-on bakery.
And for all the other things that I've seen around, like also online, but in other shops.
So the grocery range, the packets of the granolas and the packets of biscuits and the nuts and the sablés, they are made in Richmond.
Okay.
In a bigger kitchen, because we supply them to a whole lot of other on-selling retailers.
Yeah.
And
it's huge.
Yeah.
It's great. It's interesting hearing you talk about those memories of childhood, because often when I think, so I'm a French teacher, so I think a lot about, and speaking to chefs and so on, I think a lot about cuisines from other worlds and being quite distinctive, and I often think, New Zealand doesn't really have a distinct cuisine, and yet when you talk about baking, and then when you talk to some people about their childhood memories of growing up in New Zealand with some of the people, fishing or, some of those kinds of things. But the baking is so distinct, and I definitely grew up baking as a child. Mum taught me to bake, that we had the children's step-by-step baking books and so on. And it is it is interesting to be reminded of that, because I think that is a really huge thing for New Zealanders.
And ginger crunch.
Maybe Australians.
But
it's different things, like ginger crunch.
It's huge, isn't it?
Like proper caramel square or caramel slice, and Anzacs and yo-yos and all those kinds of things. Yeah.
Louise cake.
Yeah.
I think anything from the Edmonds Cookery book.
Edmonds Cookery. It's actually changed online. It's called the Chelsea Sugar, I think. All the recipes that I used to get from Mum's Edmonds cooking book, now I find them on this website called the Chelsea Sugar. Whenever I want to do a nostalgic bake, that's
where you go.
Where I go. Yeah.
Whereas I think in Australia you might go to the Country Women's Association books.
Okay.
I think there's the Golden Wattle from WA is the one that they use, and it's sort of localised. They have their own favourite books, PWMU, but it is similar. But in Australia, everybody has a number of versions of the Edmonds book. In New Zealand, In New Zealand,
that's right, yeah. I know. And Mum's copy is very battered. I actually should rescue that from her house, Before it's too late.
Precious.
Yeah, it is. So, and I guess that you have to evolve those products over the course of 30 years. I saw 42 products online. Is that the range? Because they look like a lot downstairs as well. How often are you changing, adding, replacing?
So we definitely have a core range. So we have slices and brownies. We have nuts, spiced nuts. We have granolas and mueslis, and then we have the biscuit range. And then at Christmas and Easter, we again have a core range that we bring out every year, but we usually have 1 or 2 new things every Christmas, every Easter. And we also have a winter range that comes out just after Easter, and that can have sort of 6 or 8 items. And whichever products become the most popular, they usually stay in the range, and then over time we might take something out of the range that's not performing as well. So we have a bit of an evolution, and we're about to sort of focus more on that because we recently, at the end of last year in December, closed down our wholesale bakery. So we don't supply wholesale bread anymore. We just do retail bread in Brighton for Brighton and this store.
Okay.
And it means that our focus can now go into the grocery range, and we can start to really have a look at that and have some new things, new products coming out. We're doing quite a bit of testing at the moment.
Where are you getting the ideas for that? What's your inspiration?
So I do like to travel every so often, and I definitely come back with ideas from travel. But I also get ideas just from friends. If they make something and it's really good, it doesn't have to be wildly exotic. It can just be something that really delivers, and then that inspires me. And sometimes it's just flicking through books or revisiting things from the past that got forgotten, recipes and items that we used to have. I mean, ginger crunch was sort of one of them because it's not very well known here.
No.
So we did introduce that, and we do make that in the winter, and that has its own solid following as well.
I don't have a sweet tooth, but I do love ginger crunch, a good ginger crunch.
Yeah, it's good.
Does your base do you put oats in it, or just the plain
wholemeal,
sabli?
some wholemeal.
Oh, some wholemeal, okay, yeah. And are you, with all of the things that you're juggling, are you a spreadsheet person, or are you more of a notebooks kind of? Yeah.
Yeah, notebooks.
Yeah.
I like writing, it helps me think.
Yeah. I was really interested to see that you did an arts degree and then went and spent some time in France.
Yeah.
Was that Paris?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And down in the south near Toulouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was actually an English assistant in a school in Provence in 93, 94, so around the time that you were opening here or coming back from London maybe. But down near Avignon, so the south holds a special place in my heart. But what drew you to France?
That's an interesting question. My mother was always Francophile from being quite young. She studied French at school. My father did begin working at BNP, so he became quite entrenched in French culture inevitably, and that just sort of made it a bit more intense in our family because Mum was into it, Dad became into it. And then my father, through work, became very friendly with somebody Jean, who then I became friendly with her daughter, and we've stayed friendly for the last 40 years. She's actually staying with me at the moment from Harris, and she is out here for 2 months. But I would go and stay with her. My kids will go and stay in her apartment in Paris. They just have to find the key under a tree, and they've got a view of the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, amazing.
She's got this house down in the south of France that where I first met her parents in the middle of winter. And I remember very strongly the smell of the bread in the kitchen, because at 6 a.m, in the middle, it's still dark. The baker came in his little van and dropped the bread off to their house in the country, which was, in a hamlet. And it was, one of those very well bien cuit loaves with that smell from the crust. Whenever I smell, there's a loaf we make in Brighton, the Bull. When I smell that, it takes me back to that fragrance. Anyway, there was a point where I've got 3 kids. I took them to live in France, and we stayed in that house down near Toulouse.
Amazing.
And put them into school for 3 months down the road, and so they were learning French, and so just a very close connection, but particularly because we're close to that family connection.
Mm. So what was the leap or the sidestep from an arts degree into working in food? So you're working in London, you worked with food. How did that come about?
While I was doing my arts degree in Melbourne, I worked for 3 different caterers: Peter Rowlands, Louise Lectie, and Jan Rogers. And that fed my love of food, really, working with food. When I went to live in London indefinitely after I finished my degree, I wanted to work in catering, doing office catering, and I got work working in one of the insurance companies there and he was the chairman of the Lloyd's Stock Exchange, the Lloyd's insurance market. And so, I was cooking lunches every day. That was great. But in the evening, I would work for Sally Clarke in her restaurant and as a waitress, and that would feed my inspiration for what I would cook during the day, in the lunches. And so I'd just sort of see what Sally was making, and I think, I might do something like that tomorrow or whatever. And then I'd go to Leadenhall Market and get all this amazing, it doesn't really exist anymore, but it was a proper food market then in the middle of the city of London. And then I stayed with Sally for 9 years, really, because then I went and worked for her full time. I worked in her kitchen, and then I ran her shop, which was the genesis, I guess, of this store downstairs.
So sort of learning on the spot then, and self-taught.
Self-taught.
Yeah, that's amazing. How many were you catering for at the insurance?
Usually 6 to 8, sometimes 12, not too big. But then on weekends, so the chairman had a house on the island of Sark, and there was one summer that every other weekend, so twice a month, we would go over there and he'd have his guests, and I can't remember, there might have been 12, and I'd have to cook every meal. But to get there, it was every form of transport. It was the train to the airport, a small plane, then arrive, go on a boat, get on a tractor, and then get to the house, because the Isle of Sark had no cars on it.
Wow.
And we'd take our crayfish and all our ingredients had to be very organised.
Where is that island?
The Channel Islands, in between France and England. Yeah. Guernsey, Jersey, Alderney, Sark, and another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Sark is a small one.
Okay.
And it was a feudal system. So everybody I think there were 42 property owners, and they were all governing the island. Yeah, very...
How amazing. It's quite amazing. Cinematic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like just... especially the means of transport. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what is it that you loved about food and feeding people then, do you think? Because that's what it sounds like it was.
I love tasting.
Yeah.
And tasting new things. And I enjoy seeing people sitting around a table, enjoying food and having good conversations. And the connection with my past too, I guess. That connection to my childhood and, those happy memories that they evoke, the flavours can evoke. They just take you back to the happy, childhood.
And it sounds very, it sounds brave to me, trying those kinds of things. And you also were you cooking on the yacht as well? Were you,
I did cook on a yacht. So that was different. That was working for the insurance company. And then a group of them decided to go sail from Brighton, England, to Cadiz in Spain. And they decided it would be good to take me along because I would cook for them. But so there were 6 of us, I think, on this yacht. It was 8 days, 8 nights, and we sailed along through the Bay of Biscay and cooked. They weren't too serious. We were supposed to be in a yacht race, but they were more interested in having ginger beer in the afternoon. It was fun, though. We ate very well.
And was that calling in at places, or did you have to? You had to know you had your menus all sorted and your food list before you went. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Had to check everything and be fairly organised.
And in a small galley, I expect.
Yes, I know. Moving around in the high seas, and we all had to do night watch. 2 till 5 was the difficult one. 2 of us would have to make sure that the yacht was going in the right direction.
How amazing!
In the dark. Yeah, it was fun.
And so now 30 years on, where to from here? Do you have some
definitely putting a lot of energy into the grocery range and developing products and new markets for that. And we've got we can see a lot of opportunity there. There's a big demand for high quality products without additives, unnecessary additives, really good natural ingredients. I mean, it is hard to find products that are made with butter and if we make something with candied orange peel, we make the candied orange peel ourselves because if you buy it, it's got a whole lot of chemicals in it. And that sort of imparts the chemical flavour. So if we're making something, we use really good chocolate. Because you're only as good as the last mouthful. So as long as somebody is eating something and it over delivers on flavour, then we're ahead. We don't gas flush things, and our recipes are just as my mother would make. We don't put long shelf lives on them because we could. Our products you could eat them for a lot longer than the shelf life we put on, but we want people to eat them as though they're freshly baked because they're not going to last a long. Nothing tastes great 6 months down the track. So we're quite sort of and the way we package. A lot of our products are purchased as a proud gift to give somebody. Usually people are proudly going to gift something from Philippa's. But equally, it's not a product that's so packaged that it looks too good to open. You can get things that are so pretty, you just want them to sit there. You're never going to open them. And so we sort of like to think we've got that balance. And we've got that transparency so that people can see how much product is in there and what it looks like, as opposed to things in boxes and you can't see anything, and in fact it's only a quarter full. That whole game that you play. So there's a whole lot of honesty around how we go to market.
And how do you go, because everything costs so much these days, and consumers and diners are often disgruntled about the cost of things in restaurants, for example, even though we know when we go to the supermarket that things cost a lot. Just making that equation, it must be hard to balance that really good quality with food costs.
Look, it is, but I think that our customer, our existing customer absolutely knows what we stand for, and they know the real cost to them of trying to make these products. Absolutely. The time and the energy, the risk of burning it, the amount of cleaning and tidying up to do, the amount of planning and shopping, and then you actually don't have an egg, so you've got to go back. So when you think about it, it's actually inexpensive because we are making the quality that you would make if you were spending as much money as you could afford on your ingredients, as opposed to let's spend as little money as we can on the ingredients and make everything for the lowest possible price, and then we can offer it for $3 or $5 instead of what it should be, because it's been frozen for 10 months. It has actually no flavour. It looks okay. I mean, our products are different.
Yeah.
Our products are fresher. Our products are made with good ingredients. They're fresh. They're freshly, you know, we have a good turnover on them, and we don't do anything to help them last longer. We don't add. There are natural ingredients I could add that would help them to last longer, but it would take away from the flavour and the enjoyment and the quality. We make jam. We do not add pectin to our jam under any circumstances. Because if you compare a jam made with pectin and made without, the ones made with pectin, it's almost like they've had some flavour sucked out of them. I don't know what happens, but it's just they have a nice set jelly, and to me that's a bad sign.
Yeah, yeah.
And this doesn't have as much flavour. I just like things that have got... I like complex flavours. And when I'm tasting things, I like to see a range of flavours. I think because when I worked in the UK, I worked closely with Neal's Yard Dairy, and I sold a lot of Neal's Yard Dairy cheeses. And they were generally unpasteurised cheeses. And that meant that if you ate a piece of cheese, you know, the flavour went from here to here to here, and it kept giving you flavour while you were eating it. Whereas if you're not careful now, you can eat a piece of cheese and there's got one-dimensional flavour. Yes, it's cheese, and that's the only thing you know, as opposed to levels that keep giving. And that's all about the ingredients and how they're treated. And in the case of cheese, it's about pasteurisation. Can have very good cheeses that are pasteurised, but they're pasteurised at a low temperature for a longer period of time, and it doesn't kill off all the flavours, and it's just a better way to make cheese. So, I mean, I'm interested in products that deliver.
Yeah.
And they're not just one-dimensional, they're multi-dimensional. That's what I'm after. Natural, it's good for your gut, it's good for your health, it's a luxury, but it's just not full of nonsense and rubbish. And it brings back those memories too. Because when our mothers and grandmothers baked, they baked like this. So that's probably why those memories are very strong, because they were much more, apart from the fact that when you're younger you've got taste buds that are more sensitive, but there was a lot more flavour coming out when you were younger. Because if you were eating products that were made at home, they just had more, you know. They weren't made in the shortcut manner.
That's right. I remember Mum making big lots of tomato sauce, and I guess thinking now, I guess it's like when Italians make passata, but that's not what Mum would have been. That's not a tradition she would have been following. It was just like tomatoes are in season, and her tomato sauce was amazing. It was always, it had all the seeds in it, and it was just really, really flavoursome. Yeah. And
see, not with shortcuts.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
No, I think she tried a few different methods with, stockings to strain things. I just remember there's a whole thing in a huge pan. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I guess with all that in mind and your experience here and overseas, what would your advice be to someone thinking about getting into hospitality or cooking?
I remember when I was planning on coming back from the UK to come here to set up a business, I had some friends that were in finance and accountants. They said, you've got to have a business plan. You've got to have a business plan. I'm like, it's not my thing really to have a business plan. Anyway, so we sat down and he made me pull out figures and, we put something together. So it is a good idea to have a business plan, something that you can measure yourself against. And not that you can't make changes as you go along, as you understand the situation more and more, but that is a good idea. The other thing I think that is a really smart idea is to surround yourself with some good people that you can get advice from, and even a mentor, because they will. If you have good people around you, and you get good advice, that'll make a big difference to the direction in your future. And I think the other important thing is to work out how to generate the widest reach once you have your restaurant, cafe, products. You want to be able to make sure that as many people as possible know about you, and have a reason to try you out. You can often see new places and they just open the doors, there's nobody there, and they're next to a place that's new and open the door and you can't even get in. And usually it's about the product, but it's not always about the product. It's just about influence sometimes. It is important to have a good product. It's not much point having a whole lot of people coming to have something that doesn't taste any good, or doesn't deliver on what they say they're going to deliver on. I think they're probably the most important things, and I probably also to have a clear vision of what you stand for. I mean, I know that we stand for using traditional ingredients and traditional methods and good quality ingredients and having distinctive flavours and textures, and it means that all sorts of ideas and inspiration and thoughts can come to me or be thrown at me, and I can just go back to that. Well, is that going to be part of that or not? Like, let's make jam and we can make a lot of it, but we'll put some pectin in it. It's like, no, that isn't going to work. They won't deliver what we need. So pectin's out of the picture. But it just means you've got a bit of something to guide you through. Because it depends on how your mind works, but if you're influenced, if you can easily be influenced and be overwhelmed by too many thoughts and ideas, it's quite good to be able to distill it back and bring it back to where it needs to be and to know why it should be there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Conversation with a Chef with Phillippa Grogan at Philippa's Bakery in Armadale. You can check out all the goodness on Instagram at Philippa's Bakery. That's PHILLIPPAS Bakery, or in person at 1030 High Street or 1030 High Street, Armadale. If you'd like to hear more stories from other chefs, I'm on Instagram at Conversation with a Chef. You can read the chat and become a subscriber at www.conversationwithachef.com. And of course, you can follow me on Apple and Spotify podcasts. I would love it if you told a friend about my chats, because that's still the best way to get the stories out there. Once again, thanks so much for listening. Have a great day and bon appétit.